Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for the third Wellbeing Community Forum called Fostering Community in the Workplace, hosted by the Semel Healthy Campus Initiative Center at UCLA and also the UCLA Staff Assembly. Before we get started, let's all take a moment to take 2 deep breaths together to help us center ourselves. Take 1 deep breath in and out, and in and out. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Wendelin Slusser, Associate Vice Provost for the Semel Healthy Campus Initiative Center and Clinical Professor in the Schools of Public Health and Medicine. For over 12 years, I've had the honor to lead the center based in the Chancellor's Office with the aim to build an inclusive culture of health for the over 85,000 students, staff, and faculty and beyond to have opportunities to thrive and flourish, and to inspire other universities and communities along the way. Our goal today is to communicate strategies for building a strong sense of community in the workplace, such as effective communication across teams, skills for managing hybrid teams, the value of kindness and compassion in the workplace, and cultivating enduring workplace relationships. And now, with great respect, I introduce Geno Mehalik, Outreach Manager at the Arthur Ashe Student Health and Wellness Center and VP of Programs for the Staff Assembly. Geno will provide the objectives for the forum. Thank you, Geno.
Thank you, Dr. Slusser. As we navigate through 2025, it's important to prioritize our health and well-being, especially with all of the recent events we have experienced so far. Today, we aim to showcase some health and well-being resources and strategies that can play a crucial role in supporting you through these challenging times. Whether you're looking for mental health support, opportunities to improve your physical well-being, or simply looking to get outside and connect with nature, UCLA offers a wide range of resources and services designed to help you thrive, both on campus, at your worksite, and in your personal life. Therefore, today we will explore some of these resources and services that can make a positive impact on your overall health and well-being this year. But first, let's talk a little about our work at Staff Assembly. Staff Assembly is an organization founded in 1978 for staff dedicated to promoting the interest and welfare of all staff employees. It's supported by the Office of the Chancellor and Campus Human Resources, and Staff Assembly provides a forum where staff employees and faculty at all levels can discuss university issues of mutual concern and forward their opinions on policies, procedures, and activities to the administration. We provide a two-way communication system to help promote respect and cooperation among staff and other members of the UCLA community. We serve on major campus and system-wide committees, and we offer a vehicle for staff to stay informed and feel included. But we also offer opportunities for staff to get back to the UCLA community through scholarships, fundraising, and special events. As VP of Programs for Staff Assembly, I've worked with our board to build a slate of programs that encourage us as staff and faculty to take time out of our workday to pause and reflect on our own well-being. From tours of UCLA's Matthias Botanical Garden to a meet and greet with the UCLA Pack Therapy Pets. We've also moved a collection of Zoom programming back to in-person experiences to help foster community, which just so happens to be the topic of our program today. Today, we will hear from 3 esteemed speakers. Then we have the opportunity to field questions from the audience in the second half of the session. Please add your questions for the speakers to the Q&A feature in this webinar.
Thank you, Geno, for setting the expectation for today's community forum. And now it is with great esteem I introduce Thomas Griffin, Interim Campus Ombudsman Person and Director of the Ombuds Services, as well as the Ombudsman Person for UCLA Health and Health Sciences. Ombuds Services aids UCLA community members in resolving conflicts and disputes, which is critical to a harmonious and collegial workplace, and a member of the Healthy Climate Committee for over 2 years that I lead. Thank you, Thomas, for being here.
Such a pleasure. I'm so glad that we all get to come together today to talk about this really important and vital topic. I feel like, from my perspective, there's something inside of us that all longs for healthy kind of community, healthy connections. And I don't know about all of you, but I feel like working with individuals here on this campus has provided me with some of my highest highs and most excitement and also lowest lows. So I'm really, really grateful that we're coming together to talk about what it looks like to sort through how to do things in as healthy of a way as possible. For those who don't know who I am, as Dr. Slusser just said, I'm the interim director of the Ombuds Office. And we are a confidential, impartial resource where anyone in the workplace can come talk to us about any UCLA-related situation, to sort through options, strategies for tough conversations, resources, help with upward feedback, mediated dialogue, things along those lines. So this issue is very near and dear to me, and I do this every day. As I think about possible roots of struggle in our community, there were three things that came to mind. One was that there are things in the world that we don't like that are outside of our control. Secondly, that different people have pieces of collective story, their own perceptions and differences. We all have different lived experiences. We have different mental filters. So even as we look at the world, we see things different ways and pick up different pieces of data and draw different conclusions from that data. And we also have difference of expectations, differences in what we expect from others, differences in what we perceive that they expect from us versus what they're expecting from us, differences between even what we expect from ourselves as community members, and differences in what we expect or perceive from the natural world or reality as a whole. So as we choose both gratitude and the belief that things can improve and that excellence has no ceiling, today I'm bringing forward three ideas for food for thought, which I hope the community today will feel free to take what's useful, and if it's not, feel free to leave it behind. But the first tool that I feel like is really helpful is to investigate the narrative that we're telling ourselves. In what way can our narrative be expanded? I feel like this can happen in a few different ways. One is growing an understanding of ourselves by doing things like taking time to journal, taking time to sit and be still without scrolling on our phones. Um, and taking time to explore, what we like, what we don't like. A growing an understanding of others by asking with genuine interest. I don't know about all of you, but sometimes when I engage in conversation, I forget to do that. Instead of listening with genuine interest, I listen curiously to prove what the other person is saying is incorrect, or what I think is incorrect. And so learning to kind of listen to what they are having to say is another tool. And then lastly, growing an understanding of the world, which concretely can be done a lot of different ways. It can be done by walking a new way to somewhere we go regularly. It can be trying a new food, anything to get out of our own usual personal algorithms and the algorithms that the world has for us. Secondly, after investigating the narrative that we are perceiving in a situation, we can both be willing to share and hear. That includes words, so being willing to talk and being willing to listen. A lot of the time, in my experience, I think that we play roles that we've gotten used to. Sometimes frequently based on our families of origin. Sometimes people feel I'm the person who kind of fixes things, or I'm the person who kind of sits there and listens. But figuring out how to, and I think that it was with esteem and respect, you use that phrase, Dr. Slusser, figuring out what does it look like to do some of both. So The psychologist Lindsay Gibson talks about how most people try to fix problems either by performing themselves very well or getting other people to do things. And so figuring out kind of where we fall on that spectrum and how are we trying to solve issues of our community or opportunities for our community can be a really wonderful place to start. And then thinking through also rights and responsibilities. We hear people on campus in the workplace sometimes talk about their rights. The philosopher Dallas Willard talked about how our rights really are a statement of other people's responsibilities towards us. It's easy for me, and I've heard from a lot of my visitors, to either focus on one's rights and sometimes not always think of one's responsibilities as much, or to really focus on one's responsibilities and not think about what the responsibilities are that people have towards us. So thinking through that kind of giving and receiving can be helpful. Thinking through how do we want to be treated and making sure that other people might be aware of that, and then also exploring what does it look like for us to be as committed to other people's interests as much as we are to our own. And then thirdly, um, looking for patterns rather than specific situations. I feel like both in terms of looking for good things and in terms of looking for how in potential areas of improvement, it can be really helpful to think through what's something that I'm seeing consistently that I can bring up, whether it is applauding someone who has been kind, or going to someone if we have a concern and saying, hey, I've noticed that when I ask you if we can talk about something, that you can keep looking at your screen, or you say that you don't have time. So figuring out what does it look like for us to be able to focus, or to figure out not only again the specific situations, but what are the systems and the patterns in place. So in light of all of this, as all of us work ahead with common goals, as our true our true Bruin values say, excellence, integrity, accountability, respect, and service, which are required common goals. Um, uh, Figuring out what that looks like, I think, can be a great adventure. So I'm so excited for our next two speakers to talk about living that out, and wishing both of them and all of us very, very well as we seek healthy community in the workplace.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Thomas, for your perspective as an Ombuds person into fostering community in the workplace. As a reminder to our audience, please feel free to enter any questions you have for our speakers in the Q&A, and we'll come back to them during the Q&A portion after we've heard from all three of our speakers. It is now my privilege to introduce Joshua Mayfield, who is the Interim Director for the Resilience in Your Student Experience, or RISE Center, who will touch on efforts at the RISE Center to foster community.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Geno, for introducing me. Happy to be here with you all to share about RISE and the different ways that we create community here for your students and for yourselves. Do we have the slide deck that we could go to? Awesome. So I want to talk about 3 different programs, and I'll first start off with Camp Cozy. So Camp Cozy is a staple initiative through Res Life and through RISE that takes place in Covell during the first week of winter quarter. Research shows, at least at UCLA, that winter is one of the hardest quarters for our students here. Whether it's taking on harder classes, whether it's coming back from vacation, just seasonal depression. There's so many reasons why winter quarter is more difficult. And with the engagement team on Res Life, this led to creating this program for students called Camp Cozy, a way to come together, to gather, to build community, to practice wellness in different ways. Here you see tea bags that say like herbal tea and therapy, like it's like puns on tea and wellness, which are really, really cute little affirmation bags. Students coming together and painting, doing crafts. And the reason why Camp Cozy was so special this year was the commitment that various Res Life and RISE and probably other campus staff across campus made to providing a space for students during the fires. there's a time of uncertainty, doubt if they're going to stay in school, maybe fears about their home, their communities, and still creating space for students to come together to practice wellness and to build community in a quarter that's already known to be so difficult. And so please look out for Camp Cozy and maybe different ways that you can have students participate, or you can participate next January. The next program I want to talk about is Books and Bonding. So as I mentioned, with getting feedback from students and data to kind of decide some of these programs, we have non-clinical drop-in hours here at the Rise Center. And often we're hearing students coming in expressing a need, a want for community, a want to be able to make friends. And sometimes you hear stories like, oh, because I transferred in, I missed that opportunity. Or, oh, even my first quarter, I was just in the library, and so I didn't go to the club meetings, or I actually have to apply to every club here and I don't have time to apply, or couldn't even get into the club. All these different reasons have led students to share that they're really struggling making community. This led to Rise creating Books and Bonding program, where we go through a self-help or self-care book, whatever you want to call it. Last quarter, we did the resilience workbook. This quarter, it's the self-esteem workbook. Students come together, they read about a chapter or two a week, but if you don't get to the required reading, it's not a problem. There's no stress. This isn't a school assignment. You're not writing a paper on it. But as you can see in the middle photo, there's slides where we break down what is going on in the book, what are key takeaways, people are journaling, engaging with it. And it's really beautiful to see the ways that the group has become more than just a book club. The way they now are getting dinners on their own, hanging out outside. They just had a group pickleball hangout. So it's really special to see that the goal of this is really working. The book was just the venue to gather people, strangers across campus together, a space where you didn't have to apply to get into, a space where you could just join and get a free book and resources, but it really has helped build community. And the last program I want to talk about is Colors and Connection. So Colors and Connection is an initiative from the Project Unlonely, and they have determined that the loneliness epidemic is real. And especially post-pandemic, post at least lockdown, students are showing higher rates of anxiety, depression, and just loneliness, maybe lack of ways to connect socially. And so Colors and Connection is a program where brings students together and staff, and you have conversations over colors. It's a really safe, easy way to get into deeper conversations that you may not have asked. On the far right, you see the collage of individual people's artworks and what it means to them, kind of sharing our collective narrative of coming from different spaces and places. And what I love about Colors and Connection is you talk about some color theory and how different colors mean stuff to different people. And in one conversation I had, a student told me about how she was new to this country, she was here studying abroad, and the image she drew was of a sunset, and it was her first sunset she'd ever seen in California. But it was more than a sunset because the red represented the anxiety she felt, feeling like an outsider, feeling like didn't really know people here, and navigating language barriers and all these different things. And the blue wasn't just an ocean, but it was also the peace that she felt at UCLA in the community that she was finding. And so those are just conversations that you wouldn't just have in line for coffee, or just, hey, how are you doing? Doing well, take care. So much in our culture is so fast paced. And I really love that Colors and Connection offers an opportunity for us to get deeper. And this is also a program that on Rise's outreach request, if you go on our website and click requesting outreach, we can come to your office, to your student group, your org, and we can do this program. On the next slide is just photos of just kind of different events we do. We have vision board sessions, affirmation sessions, a lot of just community building. We're restarting up our 20s talk this quarter, and it's just a way for students to get together and say, hey, what's going on in our 20s? What's it like dating, making friends, losing friends, navigating? I have my best friend in high school I don't talk to anymore. I'm graduating and I'm going to live back with my parents or guardians. What's that going to be like? So we talk a lot about community and how it shifts in the natures. And that's just a super important conversation. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that Rise, we are primarily a programming center for students, but every quarter we do offer engagements for staff, whether it's trainings on suicide safety and assisting distressed students, as well as the Colors in Connection. We're located in Lubbock Commons, which is near the law school and sculpture garden. I can share more if there's questions, but if you type in Rice Center on Google Maps, you'll be able to find us. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you a little bit about what we do here to help foster and build community.
Thank you so much, Joshua, for that presentation and all your impactful work with the Rise Center. And it's so exhilarating to know that there's a resource like that for our students and also for our staff. So now it is with the highest regard, I introduce our last speaker, Dr. Helena Hansen, who is a psychiatrist, anthropologist, and professor and interim chair of psychiatry and biobehavioral sciences at UCLA's David Geffen School of Medicine. And she's also the interim director of the Semel Institute for Neuroscience and Human Behavior. She's the author of over 100 articles in leading clinical and social science journals and of 3 books. She's received numerous awards, including election to the National Academy of Medicine. Dr. Hansen will share about what she is doing to build a community, including efforts on the Semel Institute B-Deck. Welcome, Dr. Hansen.
Oh, thank you so much for that very generous introduction. And it's tough to go after Joshua. I mean, that was just an amazing set of programs. So what I'm going to describe to you really began over 2 years ago with a kind of abstract scholarly request of Wendelin Slusser and the Healthy Campus Initiative for support around a new, what we called ecological medicine initiative. So we over here in psychiatry and at the Semel Institute, we're interested in assembling transdisciplinary scholars and practitioners who are working to establish a field of ecological medicine in the US that would be eventually recognized. Our big ambition is that this will be recognized as a clinical specialty one day, not to mention informing urban planning, uses of parks and green space, and policy commitments to biodiversity and conservation. And all of this based on the idea that for human beings, connection with nature is a biological need. And there is accumulating evidence about this from studies of the improved mental health and physical health outcomes associated with contact with plants, animals, and green spaces. So there really is a large body of literature, and much of Healthy Campus Initiative work is also based on and contributing to that literature. So I'm going to very quickly give you a background on the Ecological Medicine Initiative, just to give you the context for something that I think is even more directly related to Healthy Campus Initiative, and we hope a part of Healthy Campus Initiative. So in concrete terms, this idea of ecological medicine really encompasses everything from forest bathing and guided interactions with nature, guided nature walks, to community gardening, biophilic urban design, plant medicine and therapy animals. So it's a pretty wide range of things that could belong under ecological medicine. I'm going to attempt to show the website from our Ecological Medicine Initiative, which we call Project Reconnect. Let's see if this works. Okay, are you seeing a website, Project Reconnect? Okay, and I just have to, we have a member amongst us who's really handy with animation, so I want to show you how or maybe I can't show you how the website opens. Here we are. Okay, so it's an animated website opening, which I think is kind of fun. But basically what it's showing is in concrete terms what we're doing on campus to bring together multidisciplinary scholars and practitioners, ranging from those who are active in traditional tribal and indigenous medicines, to ecology, to evolutionary biology, to landscape architecture and biophilic architecture, to legal scholars on campus and nationally and internationally in rights of nature. So it's really multifaceted. And we have had, I'm just going to see if I can go to the activities tab. Do you see the activities tab? So we've had these 2 big national, if not international, symposia in May of last year and November of last year. That's the Cultivating Connections series. We've had, about 500 people in person plus hybrid participate in each one from all over the country, greater LA region, and then also all over the country and also internationally. There are countries such as UK and Australia, as well as parts of Latin America that already have something like an ecological medicine established. And so we've looked to learn from them. But we also have a monthly webinar series that actually Healthy Campus Initiative leaders, including Wendelin Slusser and Nurit Katz, have presented in. So I just wanted to give you a sense of all the work we've been doing over the past 18 months or so. From this work, we have, and let me go back to the homepage. So from this work, we have written papers, formed working groups that are operationalizing ecological medicine in many ways in research and practice and in spaces. And that brings me to this. Okay, so we are sitting in a 1954 state mental hospital. That's where I'm calling in from right now. That's where our psychiatry department and Semel Institute are located. And what you're seeing here with the living lab overview, this sketch, is the rooftop of this building. So because we're a 1954 state mental hospital where patients used to be kept, they were housed here for months to years on end, not allowed to leave the grounds. We have these 3 enormous outdoor decks where the inpatients used to get exercise and activity in. And this is the rooftop. So we as a group have started to look at these outdoor deck areas. How could we create gardens? And in this case, a living laboratory where we could actually study in real time the mental health and health impact of green space exposure and guided interaction with nature. And I'm going to just show you a short slide deck. Let's see if I can also share this. I'm going to show you a short slide deck of what we've had going on in the building. So in addition to the rooftop garden space, which several Healthy Campus Initiative faculty and associates worked with us to design, we've also been looking at a street level outdoor deck. So this is the building itself. Some of you might have been to this part of campus and been looking across the street from the hospital, from the UCLA Hospital, Reagan Hospital building. So this is the Semel Institute. And you can kind of imagine the rooftop on the top to the right. But what I want to show you is what we've started to do on the B-level deck, which now is the subject of a birding and gardening club. And we've had a lot of activities out there to get in the habit of using the space for wellness activities. So this is a band made up of talented faculty and staff from the Semel Institute. It's a band called Jack and His Corset. And they've performed a couple of times on the B-level deck as a part of our monthly mindful music concert series. And we have had other performers, musical performers out on the deck. This is an example of wellness activities out on the deck, and you can get a glimpse of an occupational therapy garden that's already established in the corner of the deck here. But this is, let me go back to, okay, so this is James Rosser, who runs the psychiatry inpatient, intensive outpatient programs here, but he's also a really talented mindfulness meditation instructor. So this is a mindfulness group that we had on the deck and some of the attendees. This is a birding and gardening club meeting, and you might see Wendy in the upper left-hand corner. But what I want to point out is that Ganda, who is a Labradoodle, who's our resident canine, had 5 puppies. And so we were able to make this birding and gardening club meeting also a pet therapy session. And then we had a ceremonial planting of trees for the B-level deck last November when we had our ecological medicine symposium meeting. These are just a couple of images from the ceremonial tree planting. And I think that that's it. I just wanted to share some visuals before wrapping up with just a little bit more on how we're using the deck and what we eventually want to see happen there. the B-level deck, planning for it and cultivating it into a garden has really brought talents and skills from all parts of campus together. We've benefited from expert consultation from Healthy Campus Initiative leaders and associates, including James Bassett, Master Gardener from the North Campus, community gardeners, Nurit Katz, who's a master birder, as well as the UCLA Chief Sustainability Officer, and a whole host of others. We have a set of fellows that are undergraduates and graduate students who participate actively in our birding and gardening club. And they have all kinds of backgrounds. Some of them are birders who were referred to us by Nurit Katz. Others are neuroscientists of bee behavior who are really attending to pollinators on the deck. And we have medical students who started a medicinal garden in the medical school building, coming to bring their talents to bear in planting local flora on our B-level deck. They've participated in participatory design sessions with UCLA landscape architect Stephanie Landegren. And I also want to say that our B-level deck, not only our plantings, but our installation of bird feeders, including hummingbird feeders, are now the subject of a study that is being funded by the UCLA Charles Drew Dana Foundation for Neuroscience and Society. So they have a project called Feathers and Feelings that they're planning for the B-level deck, where we're going to be studying the impact on well-being of elders who are volunteers, retirees who volunteer for UCLA, partnered with Griffin Academy students to install bird feeders and plant. We're interested in intergenerational connections in the garden. And we're partnering with the creators of the Compton Community Garden, who are active in building gardens across South LA in partnership with Charles Drew University, Dr. Sheridan Ross and Cynthia Davis. They have a really active program in South LA that brings together elders and youth in community gardens, where so much is learned by youth from biology, chemistry, cooking, carpentry and designing planters and sheds, to intergenerational transmission of knowledge of how to cultivate gardens. It turns out that a lot of the elders in South LA originally came from agricultural communities in the south of the US and also Latin America, and are now pretty isolated socially. And coming to the garden has been a way to connect with the younger generation and transmit the knowledge that they can pass down from their own youth in these agricultural areas. So we're trying to learn from the South LA Compton Community Garden example to see how we can cultivate intergenerational transmission of knowledge here at UCLA in the Semel Building B-level deck. And ultimately, our vision is to create a lush garden that is a creation of the broader community, students, faculty, staff, and the community at large surrounding us, accessible to the broader community, planted and tended by broader community with a regular series of wellness events. And we also want to study it, including using pre and post surveys and interviews to capture the impact of this kind of participatory gardening on mood and wellness. So that's what I have to say for now, but I couldn't be more thankful to Healthy Campus Initiative for making this possible. We're really excited about it.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Hansen, for your leadership and sharing your work and being such an incredible colleague for the Semel HCI Center and for so many other groups on campus. And your goal to build a community within the UCLA and broader communities through gardening is something that you've proven already, having done once at NYU, and that is in another urban setting. So I think today, right now, we have a chance to ask questions to all of our speakers, including Dr. Hansen. And so please continue to send Q&A, any questions you might have in the Q&A feature.
Thank you, AVP Slusser. We'll now move into the Q&A portion of the event. So please continue to put questions in the Q&A for our speakers. Associate Vice Provost Slusser and I will go back and forth on posing the questions, and I will start. We've got 2 questions in the Q&A already. And these are directed towards Josh at Rise. So the first one is, I believe Rise is in Laval Commons. Is there a second location in South Campus? If not, I think it would be welcome and busy.
Thank you so much for your question. Our only location is in Laval Commons. We are in conversations to do some work to co-locate. We're hoping to be able to have some partial space in Reaver on the Hill during the daytime. There's still some work in finalizing this, seeing what makes sense with our partners and being respectful of everything. But we can definitely expect additional Rise spaces popping up. I will take note of South Campus, and if you want to reach out or share any spaces that you know that are available for Rise, we'd definitely be open to hearing about it. I know space is, very valuable on UCLA's campus, but I'll take a note about South Campus. Thank you.
Awesome. And then really quickly, we had another question in the chat from Lena, who said, are there workshops offered by Rise available to staff and faculty as well?
Yes, thank you, Lena. That was a great question. There are, and we're working on our website to make it very clear. Right now, we have a brochure which kind of has everything all together. Our goal this spring quarter is we're gonna have a dedicated section on our website that'll say staff offerings. But you can expect every quarter that there'll be about a couple of trainings, whether it's a suicide safe and a distressed student workshop, as well as one for self-care and like Colors and Connect. So I can find a way to maybe get your email, or I can send something to this chat after, but we're finalizing our brochure this week to send out, and it'll have all the staff offerings on it. Thank you.
I'd like to just chime in, Josh. I was thinking Helena's presentation with the B deck. I don't know what you think could be some sort of South Campus space for them to do some of the Rise activities.
Yeah, I took a picture of a couple of those slides. I was like, oh, we might have to get on the V deck. I saw the
Please
dog.
come join us.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Let's touch base, because I think it's a really natural opportunity. Then you all have space, and maybe you have your dogs or tree planting, and then we could do some wellness things around that. I lead weekly meditation, so I saw you guys have someone else doing meditations there. So I think there's ample opportunity to collaborate there.
Yes, I love that idea.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's a great outcome from this forum, I have to say. It's all about breaking down silos, right? So our next question will be for Thomas. Can you share some best practices or practical tips for fostering and sustaining a sense of community in the workplace?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, we all want that. I think it's interesting, considering our current workplace, which might be physical, might be hybrid, might be remote, and it tends to be easiest in person. As someone like gets some water and walks by someone else's desk and mentions what they did during the weekend or things along those lines. But it can be done. It can be done even remotely. And in terms of some practical tips, Google's done some very interesting research in Project Aristotle, based on Amy Edmonton's research at Harvard about psychological safety. And they spent years studying teams, and they found that one of the most effective things that's helpful for teams is psychological safety, which is the idea that you can be yourself in the workplace and not be punished for it. So that would be number one recommendation: be yourself. Feel free to be honest, with other individuals about how you're feeling. If you have questions, if you aren't sure about something, being able to kind of voice that can really powerfully build community. And as we as individuals are willing to be ourselves, it also signals to other people that they can be free to be themselves. Another strategy would be to do what you say you're going to do. That really helps people feel a sense of trust, and trust builds when people keep their word. And another one would be start small. So maybe don't start with kind of your life story, but maybe something you enjoyed over the weekend, something along those lines. In our office, at all of our staff meetings, we start off every week with a team builder question. We started off calling them icebreakers, but eventually we realized, we know each other well enough now to where it's probably not breaking the ice anymore. Just kind of a fun, kind of interesting question. I think research also shows that the power of kind of soft issue connections. So not just talking about workplace issues, which tends to be kind of the default for Zoom meetings. People kind of jump into kind of the important stuff, but or what is perceived to be the important stuff, the work stuff. But figuring out, is there space and how much intentional time do you want to take for little small things that don't necessarily involve specific tasks? And then figuring out if you do feel like a conflict has come up, first of all, you can always come talk to us. If you feel like there's something getting in the way of kind of healthy community, another option, people feel like this is really scary, it's actually to talk to someone about it and to be willing to say, hey, is this a good time for us to be able to talk about something? And then if you get a yes or no, but let's schedule for some other time, to be able to say, hey, this is kind of how I'm feeling, and I just wanted to kind of share that and check in. Are you feeling the same way? How are you feeling about this? The more that people do that, also kind of the healthier that the community tends to be, whether in person or hybrid or remote.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Thomas.
Wonderful. I have a question for Helena that came through the chat, through the Q&A. And the question is, how can we learn more about ecological medicine and how we can create an environment that is more relaxing and less stressful?
What a great question. And I think that's one reason that we're putting effort into creating a space outside of the office space, but really accessible to it, where people can take their breaks and even have meetings or host events. We have the benefit of a botanical garden. I'm forgetting the name of the person who endowed the garden.
Matthias.
Matthias, right. The Matthias Botanical Garden. It's on South Campus, but pretty accessible from many parts of campus. And there's, of course, the community gardens on North Campus too. So there are spaces now where we can go to spend time and break up our workday and even have meetings. So one of the things that we came up with in our internal meetings around how we can support wellness of our mental health faculty, staff, trainees, because, the dictum heal thyself. We suffer from secondary trauma and a lot of the personal stresses of the clients and patients that we're seeing. And it's really important for us also to be aware of that in ourselves and practice what we preach. So we came together to think out loud together about what we can do to support ourselves. And much of what we talked about, we're already starting to do on the B-level deck. Thanks to the support of Healthy Campus Initiative and all the consultation and support we've gotten around that. One thing that some of our faculty and staff have started doing is having walking meetings. So for things that don't require closed doors and a lot of confidentiality in that way, taking a walk with colleagues or mentees or, the staff team in the botanical garden, which is accessible to us, but it could be other green spaces on campus. And we've gotten really positive feedback about that. So that's an idea, I think, that we could be using a lot. We could be working while walking, so to speak. It really changes the dynamic and putting ourselves into health-giving green environments. So I hope that begins to answer the question, but that's exactly why it's so important to create green spaces for us to spend time that are really accessible to the workspace. And then there's also, we had a speaker who's a kind of an internationally renowned expert on green space exposure and measures of health outcomes, Geno Mehalik, who's in the University of Texas and runs an organization called Texan by Nature. And one of the things he pointed out is that there are also studies of just the impact of houseplants in the office space. And also they're really famous studies of windows versus spaces that are windowless and the health benefit of having access to a window and looking outside. And then there's a question of what are you looking out onto? And turns out that there's some preliminary studies of bird feeders, placing bird feeders outside of the windows. This is in clinical settings, you know, that there's a positive health impact of that. That's one thing that inspired the birding in our gardening and birding club for the B-level deck, and the fact that we installed hummingbird feeders as one of our first experiments and ventures out, because we wanted to attract birds to the space, knowing that there's good evidence that just seeing birds has a positive health impact. So there are ways that we can structure our built environment in the workspace that maximize our exposure to plants and animals, and they have a good, the positive health impact.
Thank you so much, Helena. And this question actually will go to everyone. Brian Sells wrote, "At my last workplace, it seems that the staff forgot how to work in person. There was resistance to meeting in person. Do we need to relearn this skill?"
I would be interested in the answers of all of the panelists here. I will say that the B-level deck and the activities that we have out there, like mindful music and wellness Wednesday activities, they were really inspired originally by the question of how do we get people into their offices, and once we get them into their offices, out of their offices together in group activities, because this is such a big need. And I don't have the magic formula for how to do it. But one thing that I have found is really effective is featuring local talent. People, so for example, with our mindful music series, if people know that their own colleagues and trainees and staff are performing, they'll come out to see them, and it's really meaningful. And the same thing happens with the plantings and the gardening that we've done together. It's done by us, for us, and so people come out to see and are interested, and they support it. So that's a way of getting people out, is to make it an opportunity to showcase the talents of our own. And this next week, we're going to be, for example, for our mindful music concert, we're going to be giving out awards for staff, for example, who've spent 20 plus years here in the Semel Institute. It turns out there's a huge number of them, which is wonderful, that kind of commitment and dedication. But I suspect that that's also going to get people out in person, you know, opportunities for recognition.
I love that. Anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I can hop in and say, I think being intentional around what is the activities in person, if you have multiple meetings across the week, are there some that make more sense in person versus some that are on Zoom, and make the in person, maybe you're having someone bringing brownies or cookies, but also something that we do at CAPS over the summer, we have CAPS walks, and that's been really nice. So every week on during the lunch time period, someone can choose to lead a CAPS walk, and it can be just lunch in the sculpture garden, or it can be a tour of like the botanical garden, or take you to my favorite spot on campus. And so I think, kind of like we were just hearing about featuring local talent, in a similar way, it's like sharing a special interest to one of your fellow colleagues that can only really be experienced in person. So I'd say getting some value add to the collective nature of being in person.
So I'm hearing like if you have someone you know that will be honored, or there's a reason to get together, and also this kind of incentive, like food or just
Food is always a great incentive, but even, you know, like meeting with other colleagues and having lunch out in the sculpture garden is like such a great, like it's not, you wouldn't do that over Zoom. So what are ways that there are, in addition to the in-person work, in-person community bonding that's happening, that can create these positive energy that I now look forward to seeing you in person again next week, because I had such a good time in person with you this week. So yeah.
Thomas?
It's very interesting. I just saw an article about the leadership at Zoom, and how when they brought people back into the office, because not fully, but at least one day a week, because there's no substitution for, you know, the psychology and evolution of humans and building trust and being together. So I thought that was, you know, there could be detractors that say, you're Zoom, you should be completely online on Zoom all the time. But they found there was no replacement for people actually being able to get together. So this next question that we have prepared is for Joshua. And other folks can feel free to chime in as well. But because you're at the Rise Center, the question is, how can we build community across generations in the workplace?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I'd say on the Rise staff itself, we have teenagers all the way up to people in our mid-40s, and so that's already one nature. We also service, all students in addition to some staff programming, so you get such a variety. It's navigating technology, navigating different acronyms. It's always funny when you hear like, talking about pagers or something like that. And it's like, what's that? Or something like really silly that you just like see the generational divide. But I would say that the two main things I would say is grace for yourself, for the people that you're working with, knowing that there are these changes and maybe differences in communication, understanding, but also a willingness to learn. Whether it's, hey, we're switching off of this we're switching off of this desktop application to this web application, or it's, hey, when we send emails, adding an LOL and haha isn't the most professional. And hey, actually wearing this is totally fine as a student, but maybe in the workplace, we understand professional dress as something else. So I think that willingness to learn, that grace is something that's been really helpful for us.
So we have another question that I think it's a forever question, is preventing burnout. How can managers and supervisors balance employee well-being needs with productivity and goals? Anyone can answer.
I mean, yeah, I feel like that is a fantastic question. I think that to me that even goes a little bit along with some of the previous questions that have been asked, in the question of whether we need to relearn, being in person, things along those lines. My kind of response to that is kind of, what's the goal behind that? So figuring out, like, what are the reasons that people would want to meet up, or what are the reasons that people would want to resist meeting up? Frequently, it's because there are some sort of internal goals. So as it relates to burnout, I would say having a good self-care plan is really important. Thinking through what is it that's going to be helpful to you. I think that as our workspaces experience a lot of unprecedented change and continue to some extent to be in flux, sorting through what your needs are and being aware of your needs and figuring out if there are needs that used to be met in the workplace that you feel like aren't being met currently, figuring out, are those needs that you want to advocate for being met in the workplace, or are there other possibilities, like meeting up with a friend, for coffee on the weekend, or things along those lines. But I think that figuring out what the source of the burnout is can also be helpful. Is it something that an activity that someone is doing regularly in the workplace that's frustrating or upsetting? Is it workload? Is it that there's something about the system that is inappropriate? In the 80s and 90s, the general response to that question was, well, you need to put together a self-care plan and kind of take care of yourself. And now, kind of in the kind of 2.0 kind of environment about wellness, there's also the question of, what responsibilities does the system have towards you? And so figuring out, what is it that's happening, that, is it on your end? Is it on the system's end? Is it on someone else's end within the system? And figuring out what does it look like for your needs to be met, physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, if you're a spiritual person, and how can other people do what they can do, and then how can all of us contribute towards that care for each other?
Great.
That's
Thanks, Thomas.
so well put, and it's reminding me of something that Wendy educated me about, the fact that we can't only rely on individual level self-care when it comes to well-being promotion. There are all these systemic interventions which Healthy Campus Initiative embodies. But I'll just give an example of a really simple intervention that we were able to do as a department, which was we decided collectively to reduce Zoom calls that are controlled inside of our department meetings to 50 minutes instead of 60 minutes. So we, first worked with all of our department and our division and our center directors to let them know. And then we let the broader community know that we're going towards this 50-minute hour model, which for anyone who's involved in psychotherapy kind of makes sense. But the idea that you stop 10 minutes before the end of the hour, and it seems like such a small thing. There was some resistance initially, people feeling like, well, I don't get all of my business done as it is. How are we going to get through our agenda in 50 minutes instead of 60 minutes? But as we began implementing it, first of all, universal positive feedback. People just felt like, oh, my quality of life is so much better getting a break in between meetings. It's ridiculous. And then feedback that it feels like we're getting more done during these meetings. So I'm not sure exactly what's behind it, but I think that just that confidence of, knowing that basic needs are being taken care of and the humanity of the participants is being acknowledged has helped the dynamic in these meetings. And I've talked to colleagues who've implemented this in other places who have the same feedback. So those kinds of systemic interventions, no matter how small or large, that just kind of acknowledge that we're living organisms and we need care in the way that our days are structured, I think they go a long way for morale and quality of life.
Wow, this has been an incredible group of panelists, and we better practice what we preach. So we're about to end. We're 4 minutes to the hour, but I really like that last bit of wisdom that Dr. Helena Hansen shared with us. So I'd like to once again thank all of our esteemed speakers for the incredible well-being resources you've shared and all of your leadership and all your caring for our community. And we now leave you with some next steps. We'll send a post survey to you so you can share feedback on this event. It really helps us organize our future events. And please give us ideas about future community forum topics. And if you're interested in learning more about our Semel HCI Center grant program, this program could actually support you in running your own community forum in person or on Zoom. Please let us know. And as an incentive to complete the survey, we will randomly select 5 individuals who complete the survey to receive a $30 e-gift card giveaway. So we also have curated lists of resources that will be available on our website, and we'll give you, of course, the websites of all our esteemed speakers. And there will be a recording of this session, so you can we will post it on our website and YouTube channel, but you can also share it with your colleagues. And so Geno and I have much gratitude again to the speakers, to all the participants who took the time to be here, and to Katie Embry, Heidi Martinez, Michael McCormick, Shalay Garland, Nick Sierraki, Curlin Cisneros, and their IT team for all the preparation and behind the scenes work. It really does take a village to create a forum and a community forum, and we have one here. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a great week.
Thank you.